Hello and welcome to this workshop session looking at Act 1, Scene 2 of Gorboduc, or as I prefer to think of it, Gorba. Yes, it's time for a repeat of that gag. If you've watched some of the earlier videos on YouTube, I've already used that gag once, so that's something for you to go back and just cringe at more than once over these sessions. It's not even an original gag. I nicked it off Twitter. So, hey, that's me. We are doing this workshop, one of the fourth workshop we've done on this play. We've been looking at characters specifically today. We're going to try and break down Act 1, Scene 2 of this play. We've also done a full first look read through, and at the end of the week, some of us will be engaging in doing a second look run through of the text. So we've done quite a lot on Gorboduc. This is actually the play we've done the most on, not necessarily as this whole room. In fact, many of these people in this room have never read this play before. Some of them have, and some of them have been here for at least one of the previous sessions. So it's going to be an interesting mix as we try and just dig into what I think is the hardest scene of the play. I may be wrong on that when we come to Friday, and people will go, no, that was easy. What you're talking about, we should have looked at a different scene entirely. So I'm going to dig into the context of this scene in a moment, but first introduce all our fabulous readers. So first of all, reading Arostus number 1 is...
Hello, I'm Emma Kemp, and I'm an actor in London.
And the other one is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I got the numbers mixed up because I can't count.
Yes, we have 2 people reading each part today. Reading Philander number 1 is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu, and I'm an author based in Romford.
And reading Philander number 2 is...
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm an actor from New Jersey.
Reading Gorboduc number 1 is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
And reading Eubulus number 1 is... No, we have done that, haven't I? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. No. Eubulus number 1 was Emma, actually, wasn't it? But you said hello.
Yes, I have already, but I can say hello again.
Hello, you're Eubulus number 1. I know it's very confusing. Normally we're so much slicker at this. Reading Gorboduc number 2 is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
Reading Arostus number 2 is...
Yes, that's me. Hi, I'm Lynn. This is Scooter. We live in the Northwestern United States.
And finally, reading Eubulus number 2 is...
I'm Aliki, and I live in the northwest of England.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be gently guiding us through this scene and giving you a little bit of context. So Gorboduc is based on some history, some genuine, absolutely real, definitely true history of the Britons, or something entirely made up by Geoffrey of Monmouth, which is perhaps a more accurate way of looking at it. However, at the time Gorboduc was being written in the early 1560s, it was still on the borders of being true. There were some people breaking cover going, this is not true. And there were some other people going, no, yes, of course it is. Just because you're and that's sort of basically what was going on there. And so this is the very early mythic history of Britain, of which we have covered in other plays as well, looking at the line of Brutus, basically the first king of the Britons, coming through pretty much to this point in the story of that first lineage of British kings, all of whom now are wiped out. This is a nice, happy, cheerful Christmas play. I'm not joking. This is actually for the Christmas revels. So this is exactly everybody's happy, cheerful cup of tea. So what the play is about is Gorboduc has 2 sons, and he decides it's a great plan to split the kingdom between his 2 sons. The alternative title for this play is Ferrex and Porrex, the tragedy thereof, and so they are his 2 sons, and he's going to split the kingdom between them. And there is some favoritism going on between the King Gorboduc and his wife Videnna as to which of them gets the sons get the better deal. Videnna has her favorite son, and Gorboduc may have a slight bias, to be discussed in a separate forum. This is the second scene of the play, or the second scene with dialogue of the play. The play opens with a dumb show, which is very visual and interesting, and again something we're basically ignoring this week, which is a great shame, but we're just not going there for the moment. Followed by a scene with Videnna, Gorboduc's wife, who is talking to her son Ferrex about how he's being disenfranchised. The elder son should inherit; he should get everything. But there's this line, this plan in lieu at the moment that both sons will get an inheritance. And then we come to this scene, and this scene is the scene where Gorboduc makes his pitch to his councillors, and we have 3 councillors in the room. So the scene opens with Gorboduc talking through his plans, and then we have the 3 councillors making their reaction, and their reactions are slightly different, and they're trying to pitch for a different response from the king, depending on their personal point of view. And I think it's the toughest scene in the play because it is the most set-piece speechy. And the problem with set-piece speechy is it's very easy to get into a nice, controlled, rhetorical position. I'm making my argument now, and there's nothing behind it. And it's the question that these 3 characters are talking to a king. They're trying to persuade the king either to do what he plans to do, maybe modify what he plans to do, or please, dear God, don't do it, but you're the king, so I'm going to say it nicely. And that sort of is the progression of the 3 councillors. So the question I think we're primarily asking here, but I would like the room to come up with other questions as well, and issues and thoughts about how this is to be performed in different ways in our future, is how do we make sure that everybody has a stake in what's going on? How do we get that across to an audience? How do we motivate these characters so that what they're saying grabs us and grabs the other people they are talking to in a way that we might not get out of a first read because of the nature of the way the dialogue works. Anybody in the room got any questions about the scene so far, or any issues before we actually start reading it? Alan?
Just a quick one. Have we got any clues as to the ages of the people involved?
I don't think the text gives us any clues. I mean, Gorboduc is a father, so he's older. But the general impression is that these are older men, generally.
Right.
There is a generational gap hinted at some of the advisors that talk to the sons later on. Mm-hmm. So I think in that sense, probably older, but it's a really good question to ask, actually, and for each of the individual performers to ask how old perhaps they think their character is, because maybe there is room and scope for that.
So we're talking about the 2 sons are probably young adult, which is going to put Gorboduc in his 40s probably at least.
Well, that's the question. How many children does Gorboduc have? How many other wives has he had in the past? Is this a Christian universe that we're living in? That's an interesting one to ask as well about this text. But yeah, all good questions. Keep asking those questions. And of course, individual actors can come up with their own individual slants as to what they think their character should lean towards. So what we're going to do, just as an establishing thing, is just to read through the scene with our first set of readers. So Eric, Alan, Elizabeth, and Emma. The only sort of note I'm going to give you is to give it some pace. Give it a sense, that Gorboduc is the king, and you are talking to a king, and kings can do horrible things to you. And enjoy it as well. Enjoy those flourishes, and don't be afraid of being the spearhead for an interpretation that we can accept or reject at our leisure. Because we're playing here none of us are here to be perfect. In fact, it would be quite disappointing if we were. So if I could ask Gorboduc number 1, Alan, to go to the Oki, and let's read this scene.
My lords, whose grave advice and faithful aid have long upheld my honour and my realm, and brought me to this age from tender years, guiding so great estate with great renown, now more importeth me than erst to use your faith and wisdom, whereby yet I reign, that when by death my life and rule shall cease, the kingdom yet may with unbroken course have certain prince, by whose undoubted right your wealth and peace may stand in quiet stay, and eke that they whom nature hath prepared in time to take my place in princely seat, while in their father's time their pliant youth yields to the frame of skilful governance, may be so taught and trained in noble arts, as what their fathers, which have reigned before, have with great fame derived down to them. With honour they may leave unto their seed, and be not thought for their unworthy life, and for their lawless swerving out of kind, worthy to lose what law and kind them gave, but that they may preserve the common peace, the cause that first began and still maintains the lineal course of king's inheritance, for me, for mine, for you, and for the state, whereof both I and you have charge and care. Thus do I mean to use your wonted faith to me and mine and to your native land. My lords, be plain, without all wry respect or poisonous craft, to speak in pleasing wise, lest as the blame of ill succeeding things shall light on you, so light the harms also.
Your good acceptance so, most noble king, of such your faithfulness as heretofore we have employed in duties to your grace, and to this realm, whose worthy head you are, well proves that neither you mistrust at all, nor we shall need in boasting wise to show our truth to you, nor yet our wakeful care for you, for yours, and for our native land. Wherefore, O king, I speak as one for all, sith all as one do bear you equal faith. Doubt not to use our counsels and our aids, whose honours, goods, and lives are whole avowed, to serve, to aid, and to defend your grace.
My lords, I thank you all. This is the case. Ye know, the gods, who have the sovereign care for kings, for kingdoms, and for common weals, gave me 2 sons in my more lusty age, who now in my decaying years are grown well towards ripe estate of mind and strength, to take in hand some greater princely charge, as yet they live and spend their hopeful days with me and with their mother here in court. Their age now asketh other place and trade, and mine also doth ask another change, theirs to more travail, mine to greater ease, when fatal death shall end my mortal life. My purpose is to leave unto them twain the realm divided into 2 sundry parts. The one Ferex, mine elder son, shall have, the other shall the other Porex rule, that both my purpose may be more firmly stand, and eke that they may better rule their charge. I mean forthwith to place them in the same, that in my life they may both learn to rule, and I may joy to see their ruling well. This is, in sum, what I would have ye weigh. First, whether you allow my whole device, and think it good for me, for them, for you, and for our country, mother of us all. And if you like it, and allow it well, then for their guiding and their governance, show forth such means of circumstance, as ye think meet to be both known and kept. Lo, this is all. Now tell me your advice.
And this is much, and asketh great advice. But for my part, my sovereign lord and king, this I do I think. Your majesty doth know how under your justice and in peace great wealth and honour long we have enjoyed, so as we cannot seem with greedy minds to wish for change of prince and governance. But If we like your purpose and device, our liking must be deemed to proceed of rightful reason and of heedful care, not for ourselves, but for our common state. Sith our state doth need no better change, I think in all as erst your grace has said. First, when you shall unload your aged mind of heavy care and troubles manifold, and lay the same upon my lords, your sons, whose growing years may bear the burden long, and long I pray the gods grant it so. And in your life, while you shall so behold their rule, their virtues, and their noble deeds, such as their kind behigheth to us all, great be the profits that shall grow thereof. Your age in quiet shall the longer last, your lasting age shall be their longer stay. For cares of kings that rule as you have ruled, for public wealth and not for private joy, do waste man's life and hasten crooked age with furrowed face and with enfeebled limbs, to draw on creeping death a swifter pace. They too, yet young, shall bear the parted rein with greater ease than one, now old, alone, can wield the whole, for whom much harder is with lessened strength and double weight to bear your eye, your counsel, and the grave regard of father, yea, of such as father's name, now at beginning of their sundered reign, when it is hazard of their whole success shall bridle of their force of youthful hearts, and so restrain the rage of insolence which most assails the young and noble minds, and so shall guide and train in temperate stay their green yet bending wits with reverent awe, as now inured with virtues at the first. Custom, O king, shall bring full delightfulness by use of virtue. Vice shall grow in hate. By use of virtue, vice shall grow in hate, yes. But if you so dispose it, that the day which ends your life shall first begin their reign, great is the peril. What will be the end when such beginning of such liberties, void of such stays as in your life do lie, shall leave them free to random of their will? An open prey to traitorous flattery, the greatest pestilence of noble youth. Which peril shall be past if in your life their tempered youth with aged fathers awe be brought in urge of skillful staidness, and in your life their lives disposed so shall lengthen your noble life in joyfulness. Thus I think that your grace hath wisely thought, and that your tender care of common weal hath bred this thought, so as to divide your land and plant your sons to bear the present rule, while you yet live to see their ruling well, that you may longer live by joy therein. What further means behooveful are and meet at great leisure may your grace devise, when have said, and when we be agreed, if this be best, to part the realm in twain, and place your sons in present government, whereof, as I have said plainly in my mind, so would I hear the rest of all my lords.
I think, as have been said before, in part again, my mind is otherwise. As for dividing of this realm in twain, and lotting out the same in equal parts, to either of my lords, your grace's sons, that think how best for this your realms behove, for profit and advancement of your sons, and for your comfort and your honour eke, but so to place them more your life to last, to yield to them the royal governance, to be above them only in the name of father, not in kingly state also. I think not good for you, for them nor us. This kingdom since the bloody civil field, where Morgan slain did yield his conquered part unto his cousin's sword in Cumberland, containeth all that Wilhelm did suffice. 3 noble sons of your forefather Brute. So your 2 sons it may also suffice. The more the stronger, if they agree in one. The smaller compass that the realm does hold, the easier is the sway thereof to weld. The nearer justice to the one poor, the smaller charge, and yet enough for one. And when the region is divided so that brethren be the lords of either part, such strength of nature knit between them both, in sundry bodies by conjoined love, that not as 2, but one of doubled force, each is to other as a sure defence. The nobleness and glory of the one doth sharp the courage of the other's mind, with a virtuous envy to contend for praise. And such an equalness hath nature made between the brethren of one father's seed, as an unkind wrong it seems to be, to throw the other subject under feet of him, whose peer he is by course of kind, and nature that did make this equalness, of so repenteth at so great a wrong, that often she raises by a grudging grief in younger brethren at the older state, whereby those towns and kingdoms have been raised, and famous stocks of royal blood destroyed. The brother that should be the brother's aid, and have a wakeful care for his defence, gapes for his death, and blames the lingering years, that brings not forth his end with faster course. And oft impatient of so long delays, with hateful slaughter he prevents the fates, and heaps a just reward for brother's blood, with endless vengeance on his stock for aye. Such mischiefs here are wisely met withal, if equal states may nourish equal love. Where none has cause to grudge the other's good, but now the head to stoop beneath them both. Nay kind, nay reason, nay good order bears. And oft it hath been seen that where nature hath been perverted in disordered wise, when fathers cease to know that they should rule, and children cease to know they should obey, and often over kindly tenderness is mother of unkindly stubbornness. I speak not this in envy or reproach, as if I grudge the glory of your sons, whose honour I beseech the gods to increase, nor yet as if I thought there did remain so filthy cankers in their noble breasts, whom I esteem, which is their greatest praise, undoubted children of so good a king. Only I mean to show my certain rules, which kind hath grasped within the mind of man, that nature hath her order and her course, which, being broken, doth corrupt the state of minds and things, even in the best of all. My lords, your sons may learn to rule of you. Your own example in your noble court is fittest guide of their youthful years. If you desire to seek some present joy, by spite of their well-ruling in your life, see them obey, so shall you see them rule. Whoso obeyeth not with humbleness will rule with outrage and insolence. Long may they rule. I do beseech the gods, but long may they learn ere they begin to rule. If kind and fates would suffer, I would wish them aged princes and immortal kings. Wherefore, most noble king, I will assent between your sons, that you divide your realm, and as in kind, so match them in degree. But while the gods prolong your life, prolong your reigns, for thereto live you here. And therefore have the gods so long forborne to join you to themselves, that still you might be prince and father of our common weal. They, when they see your children right to rule, will make them room, and will remove you hence, that yours in right ensuing of your life may rightly honour your mortal name.
Your wanted true regard of faithful hearts makes me, O king, the bolder to presume to speak what I can see within my breast, although the same do not agree at all with that which other here my lords have said, nor which yourself have seen best to like. Pardon I crave, and that my words be deemed to flow from hearty zeal into your grace, and to the safety of your common weal. To part your realm unto my lords your sons, I think not good for you, ne yet for them, but worst of all, for this, our native land. For with one land, one single rule is best. Divided reigns do make divided hearts, but peace preserves the country and the prince. Such is in man the greedy mind to reign, so great is his desire to climb aloft in worldly stage, the stateliest parts to bear, that faith and justice and all kindly love do yield unto desire of sovereignty. where equal state doth raise an equal hope to win the thing that either would attain. Your grace remembereth how in past years the mighty Brute, first prince of all this land, possessed the same and ruled it well in one. He thinking that the compass did suffice for his 3 sons, 3 kingdoms eke to make, cut it in 3 as you would now in twain. But how much British blood hath since been spilt to join against the sundered unity? What princes slain before their timely hour? What waste of towns and people in the land? What treasons heaped on murders and spoils, whose just revenge even yet is scarcely ceased? Ruthful remembrance is yet had in mind. The gods forbid the like to chance again, and you, O king, give not the cause thereof. My lord Ferex, your elder son, perhaps, whom kind and custom gives a rightful hope to be your heir and to succeed your reign, shall think that he doth suffer greater wrong than he perchance will bear, if power serve. Porex the younger, so upraised in state, perhaps in courage will be raised also, if flattery then, which fails not to assail the tender minds of yet unskilful youth, in one shall kindle and increase disdain, and envy in the other's heart inflame. This fire shall waste their love, their lives, their land, and ruthful ruin shall destroy them both. I wish not this, O king, to so befall, but fear the thing that I do most abhor. Give no beginning to so dreadful end. Keep them in order and obedience, and let them both, by now obeying you, learn such behavior as beseems their state. The elder, mildness in his governance, the younger, a yielding contentedness, and keep them near unto your presence still, that they, restrained by the awe of you, may live in compass of well-temperate stay, and pass the perils of their youthful years. Your aged life draws on to feebler time, wherein you shall less able be to bear the travails that in youth you have sustained, both in your person and your realm's defence. If planting now your sons in further parts, you send them further from your present reach, less shall you know how they themselves demean. Traitorous corrupters of their pliant youth shall have unspied a much more free access, and if ambition and inflamed disdain shall arm the one, the other, or them both, to civil war or to usurping pride. Late shall you rue that you ne reck before. Good is, I grant, of all hope the best, but not to live still dreadless of the worst. So trust the one, that the other be foreseen. Arm not unskilfulness with princely power, but you that long have wisely ruled the reins of royalty within your noble realm, so hold them, while the gods for our avails shall stretch the thread of your prolonged days. Too soon he climbed into the flaming car, whose want of skill did set the earth on fire. Time and example of your noble grace shall teach your sons both to obey and rule. When time hath taught them, time shall make them place, the place that now is full, and so I pray, long it remain to comfort of us all.
I take your faithful hearts in thankful part, but sith I see no cause to draw my mind to fear the nature of my loving sons, or to misdeem that envy or disdain can there work hate, when nature planteth love. In one self-purpose do I still abide. My love extendeth equally to both. My land sufficeth for the both also. Humber shall part the marches of their realms. The southern part the elder shall possess. The northern shall Porex, the younger, rule. In quiet I will pass mine aged days, free from the travail and the painful cares that hasten age upon the worthiest kings. But lest the fraud that ye do seem to fear of flattering tongues corrupt their tender youth, and writhe them to the ways of youthful lust, to climbing pride, or to revenging hate, or to neglecting of their careful charge, lewdly to live in wanton recklessness, or to oppressing of the rightful cause, or not to wreak the wrongs done to the poor, to tread down truth or favour false deceit. I mean to join either of my sons, some one of those whose long approved faith and wisdom tried may well assure my heart that mining fraud shall find no way to creep into their fenced ears with grave advice. This is the end, and so I pray you all to bear my sons the love and loyalty that I have found within your faithful breasts.
You nor your sons, our sovereign lord, shall want our faith and service while our hearts do last.
Lovely, lovely, lovely. And that's the end of the scene minus chorus closing off. And as everyone's now just taking that out breath especially anyone who's just been speaking, well done, all the speakers there, and you realise that this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It's a long scene. It's the longest scene of the play, and it's it's four people making big speeches, and there's a reason why we're going over this. It's a toughie. But there's lots of interesting things, interesting relationship-y things that have happened over these last 20 minutes. It's a 20-minute scene, as read just now. I've got lots of interesting things. A sense of doom seems to pervade this play. There's my death, in my more lusty age, a sense of aging and decay, and a room full of older figures. I'm finding really interesting. And the sense of you're trying to change the king's mind, and the king's mind doesn't change very much, but there is a bit of a pivot in that final speech by the king. There's a little bit of a, well, we'll put in a few modifiers and stuff. So he is amenable to some things, but there's a little bit of hope in Gorboduc as well in some of his opening speech. I may joy to see their ruling well. And I think some hope is important. This is a scene of hope. This is the king giving up his cares, perhaps. Feel free to disagree. We've had a few, not very much in the way of classical allusion being thrown in, but there's the odd bit has occurred. There's an awful lot of debate and thought. So thoughts on the room so far. Let's start with Eric.
I found it amusing that at some point Arostus sort of goes, yeah, you're going to die. You're going to wither and, grow old and, you won't be able to see, you won't be able to walk. You're going to die. So we need young leadership, which was quite funny to me, although I obviously needed a breath there. But I mean, it was just quite entertaining to think about.
Yeah, no, it's the succession is important, and a time is going on. I mean, saying that to a king, you're going to die one day, it's really not a wise thing to be doing.
Fair, he said it himself, but
yeah, but you don't say it to the king. It is treason. We've got Elizabeth on the throne at the moment. The question of succession is very important, and literally saying to any monarch that they're going to die at any point makes being a doctor really hard work, because you can't tell your patient if they're dying, because you're doomed. Sarah, muted at the moment.
Yeah, I did wonder actually if Arostus, is it?
Yeah.
I did wonder if he was the only councillor who was younger than the king, just because the language that he uses is sort of, yeah. He reminded me of obviously he's not a teenager, but he reminded me, when teenagers talk to people my age, and it's like, wow, you're so old. Really? Did that happen? Wow, that was a long time ago. So, if we do think Gorboduc's maybe in his 40s, then maybe this guy's in his, I don't know why he'd been advisor in his 20s, but maybe his 30s. I don't know. Maybe he's done sterling work and risen through the ranks. But the other two I felt were kind of more senior, and he had, and also the fact that he agrees with him. I think maybe that shows a bit of immaturity, possibly. I don't know. But the thing that I really enjoyed about this was in Gorboduc's final speech, where he says, "Oh, I can't find it now." But he's basically, oh yeah, here we go. "In quiet I will pass mine aged days, free from the travail and the painful cares that hasten age upon the worthiest kings." Basically, he just wants to take early retirement, and nobody is going to change his mind. You know, he's got that bit between his teeth. He's like, you know what? I've done 20 years of this. I want to go and live on a yacht. And and really, I don't think it would matter. You know, he's you know, Arostus makes a point of saying how well he's governed for however long. So clearly he's been a very good king, and he's got it all in order. And now he's thinking, yeah, you know what? I don't really need to do this anymore. And so, you know, he's prepared to listen to them and maybe tweak his plan. But he's got a plan. He's got a plan, man. And he's yeah, he just wants to get out there on that lake and leave the rest of them to sort it out, which I kind of enjoyed.
Yeah, Aliki.
So I was thinking about this question of age, and as I was listening to their speeches, I thought maybe they went in reverse order of age, so that Arostus is the youngest and Eubulus is the oldest. There's a bit at the very beginning of Gorboduc's of the scene. Gorboduc says, "Whose grave advice and faithful aid have long upheld my honor and my realm and brought me to this age from tender years." It sounds as if he's saying that at least one of them has been around since the beginning of his realm and his reign, and is possibly older than him. So I kind of decided half arbitrarily that they were younger, his age, and older in that order. Maybe also because Eubulus is the one who's braver about saying, actually, I don't think this is a really good idea.
Yeah, because if he was there at the king's nativity, as it were, he's got some license to tell the king, you know, the truth, because he's the one who really does sort of go, really shouldn't do this, guys, really. I think not good for you. No, that's a no from me. Alan.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think of the other plays which have got thematic links to this. And we've got the King Lear story, except there it's 3 daughters rather than 2 sons.
Yep.
And there's another one that we've done which is also
Locrine.
They've all sort of merged together a bit in my brain.
Yeah.
It's
but interesting.
covering very similar areas.
Yeah, it's interesting because in Locrine it doesn't do any harm to the kingdom whatsoever. The splitting of the kingdom to the children. In King Lear, you know, there's a bit of a kerfuffle, but in the end, Cordelia gets the realm, and everyone lives happily ever after. In the true chronicle history, and following, you know, Monmouth. I mean, to be fair, we don't see the terrible stuff that happens to Cordelia. Cordelia's reign sort of peters out in unfortunate ways, and then we get this, and this is just apocalyptic, because the way this play ends is the king's dead, the queen's dead, the sons are dead, the line of Brutus is destroyed, and there will be chaos and anarchy for 50 years. This is a post-apocalyptic play of a past. You know, this is what happens if you split the kingdom, people. Bad stuff. You sort out the succession, or it's the apocalypse. And yet we have this scene, this massive scene of debating the point. And the thing is, I think for the councillors, the thing that's got to be there is the different beats that are going with that, and the different motivations, because, you know, they all want either, they've got personal motivations, and they've also got motivations about what they think is going to happen to the kingdom. So in a sense, the easiest one, I think, or at least in my mind, is Eubulus, of just, he thinks this is a bad idea and he's trying to figure out the best way to pitch this to the king. That seems to be that's my take on it so far. Whereas the question I think with Arostus is slightly different. He may or may not agree with the idea. He may think it's a terrible idea, but he obviously wants to please the king more, perhaps. And I think that's something I want to dig into in just a moment. Aliki, then Alan.
So do we know from in the rest of the play, do Arostus and Philander align themselves with different factions? With the...
Not really. They do turn up again, and they are sort of there at moments. But there isn't a sense of them aligning themselves in precise way. It's not quite Games of Thrones enough for that.
Okay.
Alan, then Lynn.
Just wondering, date-wise, where this play sits, in comparison to the contemporary history, and also to the other two plays that we've just mentioned.
It's much earlier than the other plays. This is 1561. It's right at the beginning of Elizabeth's reign. This is the first play, tragic play written in consistently in blank verse. It also is the first one to have consistent, active use of dumb shows in this way. This is a play of firsts. I mean, this is a watershed thing. It's coming in at a wave of Senecan translation as well. There's all this mash of influence, and this is going to be very influential further down the line. But this is very much at the spearhead of the sharp end of all these movements, and you'll see more happening in later plays, in that sense. Lynn.
Yeah, a bunch of random thoughts. Even though this play is earlier than the History of King Lear or Locrian, the stories on which those are based were culturally available. So the idea that splitting up the kingdom is going to end badly, I think underlies this. I think we all kind of know that this is not going to work out. So there's that. And I made the same observation that Aliki did. That first few lines that Gorboduc has implies that some or all of them have been advising him for a long time and may even be older. And I like her. There's something just very tidy about her sorting. One of them is younger, one of them is a rough contemporary, one of them is even older than Gorboduc. I don't know. I just sort of like that. One thing I observed while listening to Arostus is that he never actually addresses the problem of dividing the kingdom. His rationale is that, passing on your rule, abdicating, basically, means that you get to be around and kind of treat the first few years of your son's reign as a kind of supervised internship. You're still around to advise them and ride herd on them, so that it's a more gradual transition, and that should be better because they'll still respect you and you're still there. So that sounds like it would be a good idea, but he never even addresses the problem of having two kings and two kingdoms. He just avoids it completely. So that's something to think about when you're playing that character. It's just like, I'll talk about something else. Is that a deliberate or on, to some degree, deliberate diversionary tactic to talk about the advantages of a gradual transition of power or a supervised transition of power, and not even talk about the issue of dividing up the kingdom?
Yeah, I really like that. So he's being positive about the only positive thing he can think of is that doing a transition of power, an orderly transition of power, is a good thing. But not addressing the elephant in the room that's actually there. That's I really like that. That's really nice. We'll dig into that in a moment. Rachael.
I had one more.
Lynn and then Rachael.
So the other observation, I think this is true, is that Arostus and Philander both do kind of thought experiments. So if you were to do this, it would probably go like this. And Eubulus has examples from history. He has a different kind of evidence, and he's much more direct. He doesn't bury the lead. He comes right out and says in the first 3 or 4 lines, bad idea. So yeah, I think he is more direct in his assessment, and he uses examples from history. I mean, we can do all the thought experiments like, if we do this, that would probably happen. And it turns out, if you do this, Brutus probably thought the same thing. Look how that worked out. So in a way, I find Eubulus's evidence more compelling because it's about what really happened, not what we think might happen in a kind of theoretical model. Okay, sorry.
Rachael.
I think the idea that Philander's kind of the middle-aged guy in this is, I feel like that's why he's taking the position he takes, because if Gorboduc continues to rule until he dies, then he's assured that much time of having a job and not being in danger of it. And I think it also gives him time to have a little more influence over his son that he's the advisor to. And I think like that'll also give him time to establish himself with the next king who's going to and set himself up for his next job. So I think that's also where he's coming from in his speech. Like, yeah, it's a great idea to split the kingdom up because then I can be advisor to another king and I can have some more sway with him because he's younger. So I think he's kind of pushing this idea of the splitting of the kingdom, not because it's a great idea, but because it's the sort of thing where he can really benefit from it personally.
I can't think of any modern political resonances for that at all. I can't think of a single politician who would pick up an issue that they don't actually believe in the hope of gaining themselves more power. That's never happened before, and certainly isn't our current leadership. Sorry to bring that down to a depressing thing there. Eric, sorry.
I was just going to say that it's interesting. Like, at first I was thinking maybe Arostus is just like naive because he's like very positive about this thing of like, that your sons are going to be as benign as you are, basically. But then, like, there's some parts where if you read behind the lines, it kind of like, we can't possibly seem with, greedy minds to wish for a change of prince and governance. Like, oh my God, we can't possibly. He sort of takes the stance that this is for the common good. I don't know. It just kind of seems a bit, yeah.
It's also interesting in the way they use language, and they're using the language in slightly different ways. I mean, the general note I've got for Arostus is I actually have very little idea what the hell he's just said. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, it's a tricky thing for the scene, but I think there's something about a sort of Teflon quality to his speech, is that your mind slips off it. And I think that's actually clever. It might be too clever, but whereas Philander, my notes there I've got, it's all much clearer. It's quite bullet pointy. Some of the way the devices used, and then Eubulus is a little more dancey. I think he dances around his ideas a bit more, but also more clear. And I'm wondering about that, and whether other people felt that. I mean, in terms of clarity and getting that information, those who are listening, listening for the thing you'd be reading in a moment, in some cases, that thing of, I said at the beginning that this isn't a sprint, and the thing of you have a big speech, and sometimes the temptation is, and actually most people didn't do this, is get to the end, get as quickly to the end as possible, whereas actually there's a lot of points of mini pauses just to let something land. I mean, the obvious thing is right at the beginning of a speech, something like Arostus just going, "This do I think. Now I will say what I think." And it doesn't always help that the question of when does a sentence end in these speeches are just never-ending subordinate clauses, just running on and on and on and on, and finding those moments to actually be able to emphasize a point or land on a point before moving forward is again the challenge for the actor, and making that work. Other thoughts from the room before we go over some of these speeches again in a little more detail?
I like what you said about Arostus. He strikes me more like a modern politician when they're being interviewed, who is capable of going on at great length without really saying anything much. But I've just seen Alan's point in the chat, and I want him to say that because it's really good.
Yeah, I was getting a mental image of Arostus is the guy who's standing up there and trying to do a PowerPoint presentation.
Next slide, please.
As with many people doing it badly. Philander is working from notes he's made of bullet points, and Eubulus is just working off the cuff and making it up as he goes along on the basis of a hell of a lot of experience.
Other thoughts before I want to dive into. Oh, Sarah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that I'm not usually a massive fan of long speeches, but I really like the way these are structured, and I think the thing about them is that you've got three quite distinct characters here, as we've discovered, and if you're an actor preparing this, you're going to have to do your character work. You're going to have to do your characterizations and find your motivations. Otherwise, it's just going to turn into like owl wallpaper. But if you there's real scope for doing that with this. And yeah, the sentences are long, but you can kind of break them down into thoughts, like individual thoughts. And it's almost like doing a monologue, a modern monologue. You can sort of take the audience by the hand, or in this case, take Gorboduc by the hand and lead him through your argument. So I think there's actually loads of scope for making these three councillors really individual characters, and actually making these speeches quite compelling, and sort of imbuing them with quite a lot of I can't say it.
Dynamism?
Dynamism, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I said at the beginning, it's that thing that this play rewards a deeper look, because the moment you start looking, you do actually find it's there. There is stuff here, but it's just you look at it on the page and just go, long speeches, run away. And yes, there is almost a going in with the character first, and making sure you know being able to. It's a problem with when just reading it in this fashion, of the amount of time that we've got to go over material that you've only had for 36 hours at most. There are some limits. Lynn, before we go into, I think we'll have a quick look at some of Arostus's long speech.
No, I wasn't. I'm just twitchy. I didn't have.
You didn't. Okay, lovely. Okay, well, what we're going to do while we'll go from actually the first response. I'm relatively happy with what's going on with Gorboduc. We've done a separate workshop on that. I want to go from Arostus's first long speech, and this is much and asketh great advice.
Oh, okay.
And we'll go with Arostus number 2, which is Lynn. But we won't do it. I'll jump in every so often, and we'll talk about what's going on and break this speech down a little bit.
Okay. Ready?
Yes, actually, Gorboduc number 2. Could you just give the one line in for Arostus, please? Just the low. This is all now. Tell me your advice. Intimidate the room a bit. Go on. They weren't briefed on this in advance, so they've just been told you're splitting the kingdom. Put the fear of God into Lynn.
Oh, this is all. Now, tell me your advice.
And this is much, and asketh great advice. But for my part, my sovereign lord and king, this I do think. Your majesty doth know how under your justice and peace, great wealth and honor, long we have enjoyed. So, as we cannot seem with greedy minds to wish for change of prince and governance, but if we like your purpose and device, our liking must be deem it to proceed of rightful reason and of heedful care, not for ourselves, but for our common state. Sith our own state doth need no better change, I think in all, as your grace has said, first, when you shall unload your aged mind of heavy care and troubles manifold, and lay the same upon my lords your sons, whose growing years may bear the burden long, as long, I pray, the gods grant it so.
I'm just really liking this. It's like it's speaking without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. It's like, how long can I stretch out this nonsensical bit of text about? I'm just going to list things until I get to my point. I really like that because it feels a bit desperate. And also, to be fair, everybody's going to be doing it, but there's a toadying quality to my sovereign lord and king, and we have that in your most noble king. That may be an exaggeration because that's just what you do in a court, but there's something I quite like about that of time. How was that feeling for you running into it there?
Like not being super familiar with this text, so part of what's sort of informing my delivery is like this like low-level panic about what am I saying and when am I going to get to a main verb kind of thing.
I think it actually that powers it quite nicely. I think there's something really interesting there. Any other thoughts, Sarah? Muted at present.
Aliki said earlier that she was reminded of politicians giving TV interviews when they don't really say anything, and what occurs to me is that it's more that they just don't say anything. It's those ones, it's nearly all of them actually, when they not only do they not want to answer the question that they've been asked, but in addition to that they have their talking points. They absolutely have their phrases that they need to get. They've been told by whoever in their department that they need to mention these phrases. And so it's like, oh, well, you've just asked me about this. I don't want to talk about that. So I'm going to turn the conversation round and we're going to talk about this. And I'm going to do this tick and say this tick. And that's pretty much exactly what this speech is.
Yeah. That pivot is kind of what Arostus is doing. It's like, I don't really want to talk about what happens when you take one kingdom and divide it into. So I'm going to talk about what a good king you are and how a gradual transition from your rule might be a good thing, because I don't want to talk about the whole division thing.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I really like this bit of the beginning of our speech, especially when he says, so as we cannot seem with greedy minds to wish for change of prince and governance. And he's been like put on the spot with having to give advice to the king. And I really think it reminded me of the body politic as well, this idea that the king's body reflects what happens in the state.
Yeah, lovely. Eric?
Well, also, when I was reading this, as Lynn pointed out, when you start off, first, when you shall unload your aged mind, and you keep expecting that there's going to be something to give you a pause. Like, I think that, like, first you're going to do this, and then second you're going to do that, but then it just keeps going.
It's and such as it's just keeps the ands going, and it's just ideally you want the audience and everybody else just leaning in, waiting for a point to actually land. Is it coming? And obviously I stopped you before you actually possibly reached a point like that, so I'll just wind you back a few. Let's take you back from first, when you shall unload your aged mind. We're always going to be starting from some awkward place when we pick up on this, because there's so few full stops, but yeah, just try and pick up the rhythm again, and let's take it forward, seeing where else this takes us.
First, when you shall unload your aged mind of heavy care and troubles manifold, and lay them upon my lords your son, whose growing years may bear the burden long, and long I pray the gods grant it so. And in your life, while you shall so behold their rules, their virtues, and their noble deeds, such as their kind beheighteth to us all, great be the profits that shall grow thereof. Your age in quiet shall the longer last, your lasting age shall be their longer stay, For cares of kings that rule as you have ruled for public wealth and not for private joy, do waste man's life and hasten crooked age, with furrowed face and with enfeebled limbs, to draw on creeping death of swifter pace. They too, yet young, shall bear the parted rein with greater ease than one, now old, alone can wield the whole, for whom much harder is with lessened strength and double weight to bear your eye, your counsel, and the grave regard of father, yea, of such a father's name, now at beginning of their sundered reign, when it is hazard of their whole success, shall bridle so their force of youthful heats, and so restrain the age of insolence, which most assails the young and noble minds, and so shall guide and train in tempered stay their yet green bending wits with reverend awe.
I'm just wondering here, just to pause you there. I'm liking this thing about the young and their youthful thing, and just wondering, is this a thing that he goes on about? Is it rage? Are you feeding in on something you've heard him talk about before? I'm just thinking in my mind there, because he really does talk about you don't want to go on too long, because all this weight of is do waste man's life and hasten crooked age. I mean, that could be a bit on point. Don't know what Gorboduc looks like, but if he's starting to look his age, maybe that's something you retreat from very quickly, or do you lean into it? It's interesting now that we've got to a theme that we can actually hold on to. It's like you've gone, I can go on this, and at some point you've managed to find that track to actually talk about something. Sarah.
I can imagine this playing out really, really hilariously on a stage. Actually, if he gets into that track and he's like, "Oh yeah, okay, I found my talking point," and he really goes for it, and then Gorboduc just gives him a look.
To draw on creeping death, a swifter pace.
And then he has to change tack.
And then they too. I'll talk about the young people. Them.
Yes.
Them.
The English teacher in me has to make a grammar point, because that's what I do. So further back in the speech, the long sentence that begins, first, when you shall unload your aged mind, you have all these, like we were saying, subordinate clauses and kind of parenthetical remarks. As an actor preparing this, I think I might go through and add my own punctuation, like dashes or parentheses or things like that, to sort of guide me through the text. But as far as I can diagram this sentence, we get to the main verb when we say, "Great be the profits that shall grow thereof." And the main verb in this long sentence is in the subjunctive mood, not in the indicative mood. We're not saying something definitely will happen. Great be, might be, should be. It's a tense it's a grammatical mood we don't use very much anymore. But it's an everyday thing in every other language in Europe. Spanish uses it all the time. German uses a subjunctive mood. French uses the subjunctive mood. This doesn't really exist kind of hypothetical grammatical mood, and that's the main verb in that sentence. So, that's a little grammatical flag that maybe we're not speaking with total assurance.
No, I really like that. I always like to draw actual clues from the text rather than just layering them on top of, which is what I generally do. I get really excited and then I go randomly herring off on something of which there is very little evidence. So it's always nice to actually find something solid. I really like this whole thing of talking about young and the youthful heats we discussed in chat. We're going youthful hearts, and the word is heats in the text. The rage of insolence, and so there's this thing that the young have to be they need your guidance, they need to be tempered in that sense, which would make the casting of him as a younger person interesting, perhaps. Oh, lots of hands suddenly flew up there. I'll go with Aliki first, then Sarah. Aliki, you're muted at the moment. You're still muted.
Okay, so he says sundered reins quite near the beginning of that speech, but then he doesn't really mention it again. He just does all this old age youth riff, and then it's like 3 or 4 lines from the end of the speech. He gets back to, oh yeah, and divide the realm between your sons and retire. Good, sure. It's interesting.
Reverent awe, reverent. I like the idea of reverent awe. I don't see it happening very often, but never mind. Sarah.
Yeah, going back to the fact that he's talking about them being like, young and impetuous and needing training and whatnot. I mean, that I do think this is a guy in his maybe mid to late 30s, because he's clearly younger than Gorboduc, because he's talking about him like he's about to fall off his perch. But then, I mean, he then also has this ability to talk about, he can talk about people who are 10 years older than him as if they're, 1 foot in the grave, and talk about people 10 years younger than him as being, oh, well, they're rash. They're very, very rash. You have to, and I could just imagine him being the sort of politician, he's toadying up to Gorboduc now, saying, oh, well, they've got a lot to learn. They're foolhardy and impetuous. And then you can imagine him going to one of the sons and playing the reverse card and saying, oh yeah, these older people, they just don't understand us, because obviously we're young, and I'll be your mate and I'll guide you because I've got that bit of more experience, but I'm totally in your court. And I don't know, this whole thing of him being the real Teflon two-faced politician is really just every argument he makes just seems to build on it.
Eric, and then we'll move forward.
Well, while Sarah was talking, I just had this image of basically when I was younger, or when you're kind of the youngest one in the family and you're pestering the older ones, basically. And one of the older ones talking about the younger one would say, oh yeah, they're total, they're total crap. They're total, they're pestilence, the rage of insolence, and, that kind of stuff. You can kind of imagine him being the middle kid in the family, being like about his younger brothers or whatever, sort of going, yeah, they're idiots. Please just, leave me alone. Like sort of the cool one who's being followed around all the time by the younger kid. I can imagine him being that person.
Okay, we're about halfway through the speech. Lynn, I don't quite actually know precisely what line you got up to. If you have a reasonably good clue, go from there, and we'll rattle, I think, through to the end of the speech and find what we find here. We're somewhere around assailing young and noble minds, but I don't precisely remember where you I actually interrupted.
I'm just going to begin in a minute, in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, over it.
When it is hazard of their whole success, shall bridle so their force of youthful heats, and so restrain the rage of insolence, which most assails the young and noble minds, and so shall guide and train in tempered stay their yet green bending wits with reverent awe. And now inured with virtues at the first. Custom, O king, shall bring delightfulness by use of virtue. Vice shall grow in hate. But if you so dispose it, that the day which ends your life shall first begin their reign, great is the peril. What will be the end when such beginning of such liberties, void of such stays as in your life do lie, shall leave them free to random of their will, and open prey to traitorous flattery, the greatest pestilence of noble youth. Which peril shall be past in your life, their tempered youth with aged father's awe be brought in your of skillful stayedness. And in your life, their lives disposed so shall lengthen your noble life with joyfulness. Thus think I that your great grace hath wisely thought that in your tender care of common weal hath bred this thought, so to divide your land and plant your sons to bear the present rule, while you yet live to see their ruling well, that you may longer live by joy therein. What further means be hopeful are, and meet at greater leisure may your grace devise, when see have said, and when we have agreed, if this be best, to part the realm in twain and place your sons in present government. Whereof, as I have plainly set my mind, so would I hear the rest of all my lords.
Oh, there's some really interesting little moments in there that I'm finding really, really nice. It's like an opinion suddenly appears out of the blue at one point. It's like, thus I think that your grace hath wisely thought. I mean, it's taken all this time to actually go, I think your idea is a good one. It's taken that long to actually get to that. And then to close the speech, to close this long, rambling, really quite confusing speech in so many different ways, with whereof, as I have plainly said my mind. And I'm thinking that's a deliberate little bit of irony in there of just it's not the clearest of the three speeches. It really isn't, and I do think that's deliberate and character driven, because that closes actually. Some of that punctuation just needs to be changed. It's an absolute sod of a one to decide where the full stops actually live, or in fact, if there's a single full stop in the entire thing. I suspect it's all. I just put lots of hyphens in. I think I just dash it, rather than, and then full stop at the very end, and make actor choices rather than worry about what it should read on a page in that way. Other thoughts, Alan? You're muted at the moment.
Yeah, 5 lines up from the bottom of that speech. I'm just wondering whether that's a typo. When C have said, and when we be agreed, doesn't really seem to make an awful lot of sense.
I really
yes, indeed, that is wrong. That's excellent. Yeah, that's interesting. I will post an adjustment on that. If this be best. So, when C. So, when all have said, when C have said. So it should be all. I don't know how all turned into C. That's an interesting one. And this be best. Yes.
So all.
Yeah, I'll post that as an update. Or Lynn can make a note, because Lynn, I think, has the joy of doing this later in the week. Yes, make a note on that one. But yeah, feel free to change any of the punctuation as you like. Any additional thoughts on that speech before we go on to the next one? No, we're feeling good about Arostus. We've got his slippery quality to what not necessarily unreasonable slipperiness. I should point out, maybe if you're put on the spot by this king, what would you do? Eric, briefly.
I just like the idea that you can live longer by joy therein, just because you're happy, therefore you live longer.
Yeah, the weight of cares will be the death of you. I think, go on a yoga retreat and just relax. Relax, man. That's good planning from the king. In terms of his own personal quality of life, I think that's reasonable. Okay, let's do the same with Philander. So Philander number 2, Rachael, give us, and I will introduce you in the similar fashion every so often.
Okay. In part, I think, as hath been said before, in part again, my mind is otherwise. As for dividing of this realm in twain and lotting out the same in equal parts to either of my lords, your grace's sons, that I think best for this your realm's behoof, for profit and advancement of your sons, and for your comfort and your honor ache. But so to place them while your life do last, to yield to them your royal governance, to be above them only in the name of father, not in kingly state also, I think not good for you, for them, nor us.
Okay, I'm going to pause you there. This is all so nicely clear. you know, this is someone just stating their mind in a really, really nice sense. And I quite like that opening gambit of just going, in part, I think, I sort of agree with some of it, but I kind of don't agree with all of it. Laying your stall out really clearly, and then going straight into your caveat about that. It's quite refreshingly honest, actually, following on from what came before. Sorry to stop you there. Other thoughts in the room on that? Relatively early. Philander. I'll go to Philander number 1 and then return to Philander number 2. Elizabeth.
Yeah, as Philander number 1, I wanted to say it was a really tough speech. I think Philander number 2 is doing really well with it. I love the way Philander just comes right out and says, I think not good for you, for them, nor us. Because I wasn't expecting that after Orestes' speech, which seems to support the division of the kingdom. Philander comes straight out and says that he's against it, and that it's not good for anyone.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it is that it's a really good point that it's not just it's not good for you, it's not good for anybody. You know, it's working way through all the people this is going to be bad for, and you know, that's quite uncompromising actually. We leap in with Philander and saying he's sort of going a little bit of this and a little bit of that because of that opening 2 lines, but actually there's a good solid core to this. Rachael, as Philander number 2.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that opening line, it also just comes in, I think, like how we were talking about Arostus's like sort of rambling. I think that also has to do with it, like in part I think as has been said before, you know, so he doesn't have to go over again all these all these things, just all these praises that Arostus has been heaping on the king, and you know, setting up how high and like with these praises, and also because there's a little bit of how we were talking about, he goes on about a little bit of nonsense before he gets to his point.
Yes, he does still take 10 lines to actually get to the punchline. You know, it's not a good plan. He sort of reiterates everything and he's thinking it through. So yeah, it's not clear cut straight out there, is it? It's I mean, he's just got a more direct way of saying things, even when he's marking time. If that's a thing that actually makes sense when I say words. Other thoughts before we move forward? Lynn?
Yeah, something I didn't notice the first time through is that Philander and Arostus seem to have sort of converse arguments. Arostus says he thinks that the gradual transition of power, or that the abdicating while Gorboduc is still alive, is a good idea, and he doesn't really put much emphasis on dividing the kingdom. And Philander specifically says, no, making them king before you're dead is a bad idea. And he will go on to defend dividing the kingdom as preventing a future power struggle, because everybody has something. So they have less reason to contend because everybody's got a piece of the pie. So they should be, that turns out that's bullshit. But Arostus defends one part of the plan and doesn't really address the other, and Philander kind of reverses that. He defends the part of the plan that Arostus neglects and critiques the part of the plan that Arostus defends. That should probably tell Gorboduc something, that there's a problem with the plan.
Well, it's also that there might be a problem between the two councillors. Maybe Philander and Arostus just don't like each other very much at all. And, you know, if Arostus said one thing, I'm saying the opposite, or, you know, a variation on. And that's something, again, we can drive in. It's interesting with where Philander's about to go next in this speech. And I think we should let this get a little further in. So if we can go from... this kingdom since the bloody civil war. So you've said it's not a good thing for them nor us, for anybody. I think this is where you start giving examples.
This kingdom since the here wait, I was looking at I was looking at Sarah as my king.
Well, she
Okay.
is, you know, she's your king.
Yeah.
Convince her.
This kingdom since the bloody civil field, where Morgan slain did yield his conquered part unto his cousin's sword in Camberland, containeth all that Willem did suffice, 3 noble sons of your forefather Brute. So your 2 sons it may also suffice, the more the stronger if they agree in one. The smaller compass that the realm doth hold, the easier is the sway thereof to wield. The nearer justice to the wronged poor, the smaller charge, and yet enough for one. And when the region is divided so that brethren be the lords of either part, such strength doth nature knit between them both in sundry bodies by conjoined love, that not as 2, but one of doubled force, each is to other as a sure defense. The nobleness and glory of the one doth sharp the courage of the other's mind, with virtuous envy to contend for praise, and such an equalness hath nature made between the brethren of one father's seed, as an unkind wrong it seems to be to throw the other subject under feet of him whose peer he is by course of kind. And nature that did make this equalness oft so repineth at so great a wrong that oft she raiseth by a grudging grief in younger brethren at the elder state, whereby both towns and kingdoms have been raised and famous stocks of royal blood destroyed.
Oh, it's getting dramatic. It's getting dramatic. It's an interesting argument that Philander's making at this point. I'm not sure if I'm quite buying it. It's an interesting, but it's the more the stronger, the easier, the nearer, the smaller. These sort of ongoing examples of sort of butting into each other. It has a certain weight to it, even if I'm not really finding the argument very convincing, if that makes sense. It's like argument by example without actually making a particularly, I don't know, am I being unfair on it? Aliki?
I don't know, I mean, the example that leapt to my mind is with a corporation. A relatively small company frequently has a saner kind of culture in which the CEO doesn't, overrule, get too much more than the lowliest worker kind of thing. Whereas, say, Google is, But, I mean, it neglects, of course, what is about to be said, what I'm about to get to say as in character, so I'm not going to go into it too much.
Yes, and now we get people in the room to argue their own point in character. Yes, that's the next workshop. Sarah.
Yes, I wonder if there's also with these 3, as well as a grading of age, a grading of sincerity. I mean, we kind of talked on this earlier, but what occurs to me about this is that, yes, his arguments are extremely good. They're very rational, and he is speaking his mind. But I wonder if what is missing is passion, in a way. Like Eubulus, he comes across as being very, very committed to his opinion, very passionate about what he believes in. And then at the other end, you've got Arostus, who clearly isn't committed to anything other than self-advancement, maybe, or making sure that the king doesn't kill him for his advice. And then this guy is the kind of, again, he's the medium way. Everything he's saying is, completely rational, and he's backing up his argument with good justifications and clear examples. But it doesn't really have that. It doesn't really have that passion behind it that we're going to get later on from Eubulus. And I mean, again, that says a lot about him. That could be a character choice that you run with, that he is this very, very, he's the very measured one in the room.
It's interesting. He's using quite a lot of bloody language.
But he's not.
And there is a certain, the beware. It's almost Project Fear at times, isn't it?
I suppose
the way the language works. I'm not sure on that one.
It's not particularly, though. He's using these, I mean, yes, you're right. He's using them, but he's not using them in a. He's not really appealing to the emotions with them, if you know what I mean. He's using them as more abstract arguments rather than following through. Like, you know, he's not really following through with the emotional consequences. He's talking about all these like, oh, these terrible things that could happen, but he's not really. He doesn't really seem to be engaging with them, or maybe it's just that I'm not engaging with him. Maybe that's it.
Rachael, I saw a wave.
I think his argument is really like, if you don't want a civil war, you should divide the country. Well, like, you should divide the country legally. So I think it's kind of like this, like how Sarah was saying, the gradation of sincerity of them. I think that sort of like it's sort of one of those things where it's what he's saying is very wrong to the maintaining of the body of the country. But yeah, I that's what I think. I think he's kind of. I think that's the more the danger of him is that he has more. I don't know, can compose himself more than Arostus, but he's really saying I think some dangerous things, and is able to put them forward in a more logical way to get the king to his side and his point.
Eric.
Yeah, I've just been wondering who Morgan is, because is that like Morgan Le Fay or is that someone else? Because of
it's another one of those children. So it's son of Lear's daughter Goneril. So it's not Arthurian because of the time screen we're working through. We haven't got there yet. Hasn't happened yet. That would be future times. We're way further back than Arthur. The Romans haven't arrived yet, you know. Yeah, okay, let's this is a longer speech than the last one, so it's interesting also that there's more for Philander to say. So we got to the famous stocks of royal blood destroyed. Let's go and see what continues out of that theme. I did sort of pauses mid-thought to a degree, but let's continue picking up and seeing what we get.
And famous stocks of royal blood destroyed. The brother that should be the brother's aid and have a wakeful care for his defense gapes for his death and blames the lingering years that bring not forth his end with faster course. And oft impatient of so long delays, with hateful slaughter he prevents the fates and heaps a just reward for brother's blood. With endless vengeance on his stock for aye, such mischiefs here are wisely met withal. If equal state may nourish equal love, where none has cause to grudge the other's good, but now the heed to stoop beneath them both, nay kind, nay reason, nay good order bears. And oft it hath been seen that where nature hath been perverted in disordered wise, when fathers cease to know that they should rule, and children cease to know they should obey. And often over kindly tenderness is mother of unkindly stubbornness. I speak not this in envy or reproach, as if I grudged the glory of your sons, whose honor I beseech the gods to increase. Nor yet as I thought there did remain, so filthy cankers in their noble breasts, whom I esteem, which is their greatest praise, undoubted children of so good a king.
Oh yes, it's just the sudden step change to just pulling it back of just going, yeah, not that I'm saying that your children are bad and that and that they need help from me because you are also noble and wonderful, aren't you? So pulling it back. So I'm just wondering this, and again, I haven't really brought this up, but actually one of the things to talk about is how the other characters in this scene are reacting to these speeches. And so, what is Gorboduc's reaction to this speech? What is obviously Arostus is probably doing all sorts of mugging and a general upstaging, and Eubulus is probably holding his peace and his counsel and giving nothing away. Who knows? Maybe he's tearing his hair out. But yeah, it's that sudden pullback of late onset sycophancy there, where we haven't really had that so far. Aliki.
Yeah, it really does seem as if it's in reaction to something, because he very quickly covers, doesn't he? Terrible, terrible, terrible. I don't mean that your sons are anything but great, because you're great.
Yeah, that's the full Paddington Bear stare, isn't it? That's a note for future reference, Gorboduc. That's absolutely what's got to be happening there, because otherwise, put the fear into Philander's mind there. Other thoughts on that, Elizabeth?
I particularly like the line, the brother that should be the brother's aid and have wakeful care for his defense, gates for his death. So I think the Philander is really, really talking about treason and mutiny in the royal family, which I think is quite on the, it's quite on the edge of what Philander should be allowed to say. He doesn't seem worried to be, challenging the king's decision like this.
Yeah, maybe Philander just really gets into this speech and just forgets how far he should go, and then has to really pull it back. Because you're right about gapes for his death. I mean, this is presaging what's going to come later on. The two brothers will talk themselves into trying to kill each other as we go. So that's from a sort of exterior Doyleist look of the play, that this is an important sort of beat that we should help presage with. Eric.
Yeah, but also kind of, isn't that what was actually happening at the time, where like Elizabeth and Mary were kind of trying to kill each other more or less, or kind of one trying to kill off the other by putting her in the tower, and vice versa.
Well, it's a little more. I think, to be fair, there's an awful lot of trying not to kill each other going on, just frustratedly going, just don't do that. Oh, sigh. Now I have to kill you, kind of thing. So it's royal relationships are always complicated, especially the further out you get. Other thoughts, Lynn?
There's a couple of important ifs in this speech that I was looking at. A lot of times, if is critical because the if doesn't happen that way. Like towards the beginning, I've lost it. I controlled F this and then I lost it. If they agree in one, the more the stronger. If they agree in one, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And then there's another if later on. I don't want to waste this time by looking for it, but he's got a couple of ifs that, if you know the story of Gorboduc, you know that it's like that if is not going to. Not. So if you're preparing this speech, you might think about those ifs and what kind of spin or emphasis you want to put on them, because they're big ifs and they don't come true.
Yeah. Okay, let's complete the speech. We'd got to you just upset the king. Undoubted children of so good a king. Nudge, hint. Only I mean to show by certain rules. So yes, try and pull it back as we go to the close of this speech.
Undoubted children of so good a king. Only I mean to show my certain rules, which kind hath graft within the mind of man, that nature hath her order and her course, which being broken doth corrupt the state of minds and things, even in the best of all. My lords, your sons, may learn to rule of you. Your own example in your noble court is fittest guider of their youthful years. If you desire to seek some present joy by sight of their well ruling in your life, see them obey, so shall you see them rule. whoso obey us not with humbleness will rule with outrage and insolence. Long may they rule, I do beseech the gods, but long may they learn ere they begin to rule. If kind and fates would suffer, I would wish them aged princes and immortal kings. Wherefore, most noble king, I well assent between your sons that you divide your realm. And as in kind, so match them in degree, but while the gods prolong your royal life, prolong your reign, for thereto live you here, and therefore have the gods so long forborne to join you to themselves, that still you might be prince and father of your common weal. They, when they see your children ripe to rule, will make them room and will remove you hence, that yours in right ensuing your life may rightly honor your mortal name.
And passes the baton over to the next person. I had a couple of thoughts there and I got distracted. It's just on a structural note, and the punctuation is still very ropey. But this is a speech, whereas the last speech was a constant overlapping on. This is very much, little point here, little point here, little point here. Did you get the last point? I'll move on to the next point. It is connected, but it is a point. And I think someone put in the chat earlier about, bullet points? There is an element of bullet pointing here, the way this person's thinking. And I'm just wondering on a character that, following on from that slightly teeing off the king moment, maybe he's no longer thinking in nice long flowing sentences anymore. He's now just getting from point to point and getting to the end. Just stick the landing. That's all you've got to do. Lynn.
So my inner composition teacher is ruling her ugly head and saying, this speech has some organizational problems. I can't help myself. So he starts out saying, I think the whole idea of abdicating before you're dead is a bad idea. And then in the middle section, he talks about how if equal fortune nurture equal love, and dividing the kingdom isn't a bad idea because it somehow is going to prevent the younger brother from being jealous and wanting his brother to die so he can be king. And smaller kingdoms are easier to manage, and so he's defending the division of the kingdom in the middle section. And then when he says, my lords, your sons may learn to rule you, he's completely changing the subject. He's going back to why passing on the kingdom before the king's actual demise is a bad idea. So it may seem that like kind of bullet pointy, but it's actually kind of weirdly organized. That it talks about the abdicating before you're dead is a bad idea. Then in the middle it goes to defending the division of the kingdom, and then it goes back to the aspect of being around but not being really king. So actually it's, I don't know whether as an actor you would say, well, that's a factor of sort of speaking off the cuff, that you start with one point and then you go to another point and you come back to your first point, or if it is an indication of the weakness of the overall argument or what. But it does actually toggle back and forth between the two aspects of Gorboduc's proposal without particularly smooth transitions between the sections.
I figured it out. I think someone said it earlier, but what obviously happened was when Gorboduc gives him his Paddington Bear stare, he drops his cue cards on the floor and picks them up in the wrong order. And there's some frantic shuffling or something. Emma.
I was going to say that after this so-called Paddington Bear stare, this is the moment where he starts bringing in the idea of adhering to higher powers. So he talks about nature as a higher power and about the gods as a higher power, perhaps to take the pressure off himself a little bit by saying, well, actually, if you cross nature and put princes above kings and sons above fathers, then things will go wrong. And also, the gods are giving you a set life, and if you decide to stop being king at a certain point, that's kind of against what they've set out for you. And the time that your sons are supposed to take over is when the gods will prescribe it so. So I think he's calling on, these higher powers to kind of take the pressure off himself a little bit after that.
I'd love to spend more time on Philander, but sadly we must move on to Eubulus. So Eubulus number 2, please. And we'll pause midway through.
Your wanted true regard of faithful hearts makes me, O king, the bolder to presume to speak what I conceive within my breast, although the same do not agree at all with that which other here my lords have said, nor which yourself have seemed best to like. Pardon I crave, and that my words be deemed to flow from hearty zeal unto your grace and to the safety of your commonweal. Depart your realm unto my lords, your sons I think not good for you, yet for them, but worst of all for this, our native land. For with one land, one single rule is best. Divided reigns do make divided hearts, but peace preserves the country and the prince. Such is in man the greedy mind to reign. So great is his desire to climb aloft in worldly stage the stateliest parts to bear, that faith and justice and all kindly love do yield unto desire of sovereignty. Where equal state doth raise an equal hope to win the thing that either would attain. Your grace remembereth how in past years the mighty brute, first prince of all this land, possessed the same and ruled it well in one. He, thinking that the compass did suffice for his 3 sons, 3 kingdoms eke to make, cut it in 3, as you would now in twain. How much British blood hath since been spilt to join again the sundered unity? What princes slain before their timely hour? What waste of towns and people in the land? What treasons heaped on murders and spoils, whose just revenge even yet is scarcely ceased? Ruthful remembrance is had yet in mind. Gods forbid the like to chance again. You, O king, give not the cause thereof.
I'm just going to pause there because, there's a real sense of appealing to someone who is on an almost equal level, actually. You are peppering this with, O king, my lord, but it's not sycophantic. It's just the term of address that you throw in every so often, not to be rude. And it's the thing is, you're appealing for, won't somebody think of the kingdom? Is your you mention all the other things, but then our native land, and you use all these examples of this has been done before, and it didn't go well,
and we still feel the consequences. When I was saying that, I was reminded of how in the States you sometimes hear people say, "My grandmother was born in slavery." That's that thing there. It's still almost in living memory, this destruction.
Yeah, the gods forbid the like to chance again. Don't go back. This was not a good plan. We've done this before. Don't split the kingdom. Just don't split the it's slightly weird and disappointing when it came to when we did Locrine, is that actually the kingdom splitting doesn't actually have any immediate effect in an overt way. It's the invading armies that actually do. But I think in the history there's a much more of a thing, and also that's the theme of this play is don't split the kingdom. It will go badly. There's a sort of Cassandra, sort of Tiresias prophet quality to this I quite like. And I think you've got the best use of the words "at all." Although the same, do not agree at all. There is no ambiguity to that. I just think you're wrong. Don't agree with any of them. Lynn.
I don't know what to make of this, but just an observation that Philander is sort of his vision for the divided kingdom relies on the better angels of human nature, where he says equal state will nurture equal love. If everybody has their own little kingdom, they'll be satisfied. And Eubulus is invoking, or is apprehensive of the sort of the worser side of human nature, vaulting ambition. And he says, equal state doth raise an equal hope to win the thing that either would obtain. You've got some, you're going to want more, rather than you've got some, you're going to be satisfied with that. So it turns out the person who sees ambition being the driving force rather than love and natural loyalty to your blood kin is the one who's right.
And we've got a question as well in terms of the balance of the scene, you know, because Eubulus's argument just comes out at us as just going, yeah, you're right. And, you know, ideally, of course, you know, do we want to be feeling balanced about, you know, should the audience be drifting one way than another, or are we just waiting for you to tell us like it is? And where that lands in the scene, I don't have an absolute answer on that. Is the play more ambiguous than it perhaps appears, or is it actually just straightforward? Eubulus is right. Listen to Eubulus. Nobody's listening to Eubulus. Oh dear. And there is a clue in his name. So let's complete the speech. I think, my Lord Ferrex, your eldest son. I think we have got to.
Yeah. My Lord Ferrex, your elder son, perhaps, whom kind and custom gives a rightful hope to be your heir and to succeed your reign, shall think that he doth suffer greater wrong than he perchance will bear, if power serve. Porrex the younger, so upraised in state, perhaps in courage will be raised also, if flattery then, which fails not to assail the tender minds of yet unskillful youth, in one shall kindle and increase disdain, and envy in the other's heart inflame. This fire shall waste their love, their lives, their land, and ruthful ruin shall destroy them both. I wish not this, O king, so to befall, but fear the thing that I do most abhor. Give no beginning to so dreadful end. Keep them in order and obedience, and let them both, by now obeying you, learn such behavior as beseems their state. The elder, mildness in his governance, the younger, a yielding contentedness, and keep them near unto your presence still, that they, restrained by the awe of you, may live in compass of well-tempered stay, and pass the perils of their youthful years. Your aged life draws on to feebler time, wherein you shall be less able to bear the travails that in youth you have sustained, both in your persons and your realm's defense. If planting now your sons in further parts, you send them further from your present reach, less shall you know how they themselves demean. Traitorous corrupters of their pliant youth shall have unspied a much more free access. And if ambition and inflamed disdain shall arm the one, the other, or them both to civil war or to usurping pride, late shall you rue that you ne'er recked before. Good is, I grant, of all to hope the best, but not to live still dreadless of the worst. So trust the one, that the other be foreseen. Arm not unskillfulness with princely power, but you, that long have wisely ruled the reins of royalty within your noble realm, so hold them, while the gods for our avails shall stretch the thread of your prolonged days. Too soon he climbed into the flaming car, whose want of skill did set the earth on fire. Time and example of your noble grace shall teach your sons both to obey and rule. When time hath taught them, time shall make them place, that place that now is full. And so I pray long it remained, comfort of us all.
And we'll just briefly pause there. I do want to get to Gorboduc's last speech in a moment. It's a good question about Gorboduc as well, actually, that, you know, because you've got that line about the younger, keep them near to your presence, that they restrained by the awe of you. So Gorboduc is still on some level awesome, or is that flattery? You know, he hasn't reached an age of feebleness yet. You know, what is the reality of Gorboduc here? And you know, I don't have an absolute answer. That's producer's choice to a degree, but
yeah, saying it, I was reinforced in my thought that Eubulus is an older man, because he says, sure, you're getting older, but you're not feeble yet. When you're feeble, well, we'll see. But
yeah, you know, look at me. I mean, I'm falling apart. Sarah, muted at present.
Yeah, I stick with my earlier plan that he's wanting to take early retirement. He's probably not that old, relatively speaking, to a modern person, but he just wants to go and do something else. But the thing I find interesting, and maybe this is explained elsewhere in the play, is that he hasn't really given a reason. You know, he wants to hand over the crown and go off and have his joyful, you know, early retirement life, but he hasn't really given a reason for why he wants to split the kingdom between the two sons. And I don't know if that's something that comes out elsewhere in the play, but it just seems like a really odd thing to want to do, unless he's, you know, unless the younger son's his favorite, I suppose, and he wants him to have something. But we're getting all these good like arguments as to why he shouldn't do this, but there's not really been any arguments for why he should. There's been arguments for why he should, like, you know, stay and look up, like, you know, stay in reigning while they, you know, learn the ropes, kind of thing. But no one's actually said, you know, this is a really good idea to split the kingdom, because I mean, it just isn't. And it's like, why is he actually doing this? Well, other than the fact we need him to do it because then there's a play.
Exactly.
Well, we know why he wants to do it. I don't think there is a good, you know, I think, well, there is a good reason to, you know, that arguments have been made as to, you know, passing on while you're, you know, and so you can pass on your wisdom to the younger generation while they're still there. I mean, that it is there.
That argument's been made, absolutely. But the argument as to why it's a good idea to actually split the kingdom, that is a separate argument to, you know, whether you should just pass it on early and stay on in the background. This actual thing of splitting the kingdom between your two children.
Well, Philander did have a go.
Yeah, but he wasn't that. It wasn't that convincing.
By being divided, they are stronger to get. Yeah, it's not a very good argument, but then it's probably not necessarily designed to be.
I'm just interested by Gorboduc's mentality. Like, what is it within him that makes him? Well, how has he come up with this idea?
Well, there is a clue, because in the sense that he should be giving it to his oldest son, and his oldest son is very much his mother's child.
Oh,
we get that from the first scene. We don't get so much about for the younger son, because we don't really get an interaction with them in that element. But there is the seed of that idea in there, so it might be that. I think we should just briefly do Gorboduc's closing speech, because there is an interesting pivot moment, and you know, you've listened to all these people, you know, you've given one of them a Paddington Bear stare at least,
maybe two.
How much approval or disapproval? What is your emotional response to what Eubulus, who's, you know, this father figure, but you are king? You don't have to come up with answers, but I'm just throwing them up in the air at the moment. You know, as a king, you've just listened to people telling you in theory what to do, and even though you asked for it, somewhere it probably rankles that they actually didn't just say yes.
Yeah,
maybe just a little bit. So
does he actually care though? I mean, is he?
Well, let's find out from his response. Are there clues there? Let's see what happens with Gorboduc. So you've heard the three. Long pause, because you're the king. You're in no hurry.
I take your faithful hearts in thankful part, but since I see no cause to draw my mind to fear the nature of my loving sons, or to misdeem that envy or disdain can their work hate where nature planteth love, in one self-purpose do I still abide. My love extendeth equally to both. My land sufficeth for them both also. Humber shall part the marches of their realms. The southern part the elder shall possess. The northern shall Porix, the younger, rule. In quiet will I pass mine aged days, free from the travail and the painful cares that hasten age upon the worthiest kings. But lest the fraud that you do seem to fear of flattering tongues corrupt their tender youth and writhe them to the ways of youthful lust, to climbing pride, or to revenging hate, or to neglecting of their careful charge lewdly to live in wanton recklessness, or to oppressing of the rightful cause, or not to wreak the wrongs done to the poor, to tread down truth or favour false deceit, I mean to join either of my sons, some one of whose long approved faith and wisdom tried may well assure my heart that mining fraud shall find no way to creep into their fenced ears with grave advice. This is the end, and so I pray you all to bear my sons the love and loyalty that I have found within your faithful breasts.
You nor your sons, our sovereign lord, shall want our faith and service while our hearts do last.
Yeah, it's really interesting that Arostus is the one who, broadly speaking, was the champion, is the one who goes, "Yes, my lord," at the end there. Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, Gorboduc is a positive thinking guy, isn't he? Because it's all, I see no reason why my sons will ever hate me. They will always love each other. You know, they are lovely people. No one has told me that they are evil. Anyone going to tell me my sons are evil? No, good.
And I pretty much did just before that. I was like, look, it's all very well to think it's going to be great, but you got to guard against it not being so good.
But we do have that pivot, the but midway through the speech of just, okay, well, we'll put in some, you know, training, king training services for the sons, or send some counselors with them. It's quite weird, actually. We do get one of the counselors. Philander does actually follow one of the sons, and the other one gets a totally random person. It's one disappointing thing I might tweak in a production, so that, you know, we have counselors, both sets of, you know, one of the counselors gets chosen to follow and things, but maybe not actually. Now that I think about it, that probably wouldn't work. Anyway, sorry, talking aloud, should stop doing that. Lynn.
Oh, just a sad little irony I just noticed, that Gorboduc says, yes, in order to ensure that my sons are going to behave themselves well, I'm going to assign each one an experienced, reliable counselor, someone with experience and integrity, and that'll fix it, when he has just proceeded to completely ignore good counsel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like Eubulus never spoke, isn't it?
Right.
It so pointedly does not address him at all in the room. I'll go to Rachael, then to Sarah.
I mean, like, the talk about Gorboduc and, you know, the mother favors the elder son, and does he favor the younger son? I think that Philander's in this scene, and you don't have Norton here, like, if like to be, you know, making the argument on the elder son's behalf. I think that does speak a little subtly that the king favors the younger son if he's going to keep, you know, one of his trusted aides, like, for the younger son. And I think also like how we were talking about the gradation in age and the gradation and sincerity, I think there's also a lot of a huge gradation in ambition, and also that Arostus, whether he's younger or maybe he came to serve the king later, that he has more ambition for some sort of position, or the inability to hide that ambition and mask it a little bit in the court setting, as much as the others. Of course, like Eubulus doesn't really have, I think, that much ambition and is really there for the good, but between him and Philander, I think there's that little bit of contrast in the way they manifest that ambitious nature that they both seem to have.
I was going to say something that bounced off that, and it's gone, so I'll go straight to Sarah. I will try and grab that back.
I'm just wondering if there's a bit of comedy to be eked out here. I don't know. I'm maybe looking for something that isn't quite there. But
comedy in Gorboduc.
Well, I was just slightly tickled by the fact that he says, "Oh, so to make sure what you're saying doesn't actually happen, I'm going to appoint, a couple of really wise counselors to, give them grave advice." And then this is the end. And it's almost like, could you play that as like, oh, I'm going to appoint these counselors to help them. And it's almost like they think he's about to say, so you go and look after so-and-so, and you go and look after so-and-so. They're almost there waiting to go, oh yes, I'll go and counsel your son. And then he just goes, yeah, no, that's the end. I'm going to appoint someone else. It's not actually going to be, it's not going to be any of you. No, did you think it was going to be you? No.
Yeah. If Dordan and is in the room and he, puts his hand on explicitly on shoulders that are not Eubulus, at that moment. I mean, it's the point about the two, the affections of the two brothers. It's almost like Gorboduc is trying to counter that thing of, we don't have favorites in our family. No, I love you equally, so I must divide the kingdom. Maybe not because he necessarily loves one more than the other, or shows, but because Videnna does. He kind of is trying to be really fair in that way, and maybe there's that kind of thing could be in play. Again, this is the kind of stuff that would not necessarily ever read to the audience because of the way the play is structured, but it might be something to give play for the characters. I'll go to Lynn, then Sarah.
Okay, so I was just looking at I scrolled back to the character breakdown, and it turns out Philander gets assigned to Porrex, the younger son. So I wonder if they have kind of they're bros, they're buddies, and Philander doesn't counsel against dividing the kingdom, because if Porrex gets a half a kingdom, Philander, who's already his friend, his counselor, his, what do I want to say, parasite, I'll get a better job if my boss is a king and not a king's little brother. So maybe Philander's motivations are not entirely good. As someone who's attached to Porrex, it's like, ooh, this will be good for me because then my buddy will be a king.
Yeah, it's really interesting because we have these two scenes following on from this where the two sons are basically talking themselves into war with each other, because the other one is probably going to do it, so they must preemptively strike. It's really Cold War at times. It's mutually assured destruction. And yes, Philander is one of the for the younger. But he's in the place as the slightly wiser figure who says this isn't going well. But that doesn't mean that there isn't that in play. That maybe he does because he wants to be part of that kingdom, and he's got more of an in with the younger. Because there are also two parasite figures who are explicitly sort of whispering. Basically, they're sort of playing computer games is how we saw it very much. They're just mates playing, while the wise counselor is standing in the background saying, "Oh, the king says you shouldn't do these things." I'm on level 4. That's all very horribly exaggerated. Other thoughts from the room, because we are closing the session any minute now. So Sarah?
Yeah, carrying on from the thing that you said about parental guilt. You know, that he's trying to be scrupulously fair, and that's clouding his judgment. Another character note you could use if you were playing Gorboduc, that again it perhaps wouldn't come over to the audience, but it would be a very useful way into him, would be to think of him as one of these very, very distant fathers who's never really been there. You know, when his children were raised, you know, that's
turns
kind
up
of
at Christmas and gives him a kingdom.
Exactly. It's like, you know, there's that theme with royalty there, and it's like he's sort of, he doesn't really know who they are, so he's just assuming that they're great kids, and that they both love each other, but he doesn't really know who they are as people. And so to someone like that, the idea of, you know, oh, I've got 2 sons, I'll divide the kingdom between them, that could maybe work in his head. Whereas if he actually knew who they were, what their characters were, he might have a different view. So that could just be a way in. I'm trying to think of a way in to playing this character, why he would come up with this crazy decision in the first place.
Yeah, there's yeah, you can almost imagine in the household that he's constantly going, ferret of Porrex. I'll go to Eric, then Aliki.
Yeah, I was going to say that using the example of the CEO that Aliki mentioned earlier, it could just be that he's like, you know, in the modern era, he would be just like, you know, checking his phone while the guys are talking, and he's like, you know, he's not entirely listening. And like, sort of, oh yes, oh, but you know, that's never gonna happen, you know, like sort of, you know, texting someone else or something.
Wakes up. Yeah, I take your faithful hearts in thankful part. Yes,
Exactly.
Well done, everyone. So we're doing it. Good. Aliki.
Just going to say that I think the early retirement / midlife crisis works for me really well. It's like he's only really interested in himself, I think. He's like, and what he wants, not his son's betterment or the kingdom's.
Lynn.
Yeah, I really like Sarah's idea of him being a disengaged father, which of course in royal families that would have been completely normative. In the aristocracy, other people raised your children and you went to visit them occasionally on holidays and stuff. So him not knowing who they were as people, and maybe I think it would also work that he just kind of likes Porrex better. I mean, that's just sort of a good family dynamic for conflict, for drama, is that the mom has a favorite and the dad has a favorite. But I the idea that he's kind of trying to buy his way into being a decent father by giving them each half a kingdom. I really like that. The first time I read this play, I had a really hard time. I didn't like it. And I just find it very, very talky and very distancing and difficult to see it as a story of human beings. So, you know, I think your actors could do a lot of work to help prevent that reaction in your audience, that these are human beings with human flaws and human needs and human imperfections, and that's actually what makes the action happen.
This, in general terms, I mean, this is one of those plays that it's, you know, you see these massive speeches and it is very distancing, and it is challenging to make work on stage, but it has several advantages. One, it isn't ridiculously long. I mean, it's of a length, but it's not excessive. And it has so much imagery packed into it, and so much potential for stagecraft and stage images overlapped over what's actually happening in terms of talkiness, that I don't actually have one production in my mind of how to do this. I have about 4. Is this I find fascinating in terms of its potential. This scene is the hardest. It's the longest. It's the most. We are law students doing a play bit, and I mean, I'm not saying in production that I might not make some trims. But the thing I want to start from a position of saying, well, let's trust the text, and when you dig into it, what do you find? And we found an awful lot, and how do we then score this physically? The reactions, the additional business, the material, the intention. These are people who are deciding the fate of a kingdom, and how you stage that and how you give it weight. And this is a play that is just loaded with doom. I mean, it's just it just gets worse and worse. And at the beginning of each act, you have a dumb show basically telling you things are going to get worse, and you keep getting told in advance that things are going to get worse, and it's fascinating. I'd love to go around the room and get more thoughts. I apologize if I've not called on some of you, but we have gone over time. We may have one more character workshop to do on this. I might have another deeper dive on Eubulus, who I think is an interesting character throughout the play. Otherwise, we're going to be doing a second look run, where we're going to read through the play at some pace, and hopefully this workshop will have given some of the actors at least a taste of it, and in some cases taste of the actual part they're playing, not in every part, to try and give it a bit more oomph, especially, as I say, in this scene, which I think is the scene that is the most dangerous one to derail the action because of its length and its complexity. But all that remains is thank all the readers today for all their wonderful work, and we can now say our cheesy goodbyes.
Bye.
Goodbye.